Yesterday, the Scottish Parliament voted by 91 votes to 28 to ban fracking in Scotland. Could I ask the Prime Minister why she wouldn't consider following Scotland's lead and introducing a moratorium in the rest of the United Kingdom in order that there can be a full evaluation of the health and environmental consequences of this controversial technology, and in order that the public can be consulted?
Can I say to the honourable gentleman that this is an issue on which he and I are simply going to disagree, because I think that shale gas does have the potential to power economic growth in this country. I think it will support thousands of jobs in the oil and gas industries and in other sectors, and it will provide a new domestic energy source. And we have more than 50 years of drilling experience in the UK and one of the best records in the world for economic development while protecting our environment. The Shell Wealth Fund is going to provide up to £1 billion of additional resources to local communities. Local councils are going to be able to retain 100% of the business rates they collect from shale gas developments. We will be bringing forward further proposals in relation to this during this Parliament, but this is an important potential new source of energy, and I think it's right that we ensure that we use this and take the benefits of it for our economy, for jobs and for people's futures.
You want to make common cause with other parties, don't you, and groupings to try to get this stopped. What avenues are you going to follow?
Well, I was yesterday just down in Swanage, anti-fracking camp. They're protesting, they're occupying the land so that the planning permission can't go ahead. We're supporting groups. We're very pleased that Labour and Lib Dems seem to be shifting their position to where we've been for quite a while. We want to make common cause. We want to have a cross-party really force to hold up fracking. And if we're going to make progress on meeting our climate change targets, if we're going to liberate ourselves from climate change, the way to do it is not to dig up more fossil fuels.
All right, but I mean, just on the process, you seem to be talking about a twin-track approach then, a parliamentary approach, a legal approach, well, maybe a triple-track approach then, and direct action.
Well, we've never been afraid. Caroline Lucas was arrested at an anti-fracking protest. We are seeing a very interesting revolt, I think, from grassroots. Local people I was with in Swanage yesterday are local residents who don't want it happening on their doorstep. They don't want it happening in their site of scientific interest on the Purbeck coast. And we're very happy to support their campaigns and to work with them. And I think we're seeing a sea change. I think people are getting active around this issue. People are realising the implications more and more. And of course, there's the parliamentary political route to take as well. One of the things about the Green Party is we do social movements as well as the hard-edge politics.
And the legal route as well. I mean, you're going to take that all the way up to the Supreme Court, I guess.
We'll certainly be supporting the legal challenges that have been going forward, absolutely, yeah.
OK, so with the government railroading through, I mean, we had the statement from Greg Clark in May giving an indication to councils, basically they have a green light. Then, of course, we had the National Policy Planning Framework in July. They seem to be railroading fracking through. What, apart from the protesting that the ladies in Lancashire do so well, can people physically and actively do against fracking? What's your best recommendation, would you say?
I think the tide is turning on this. We've just had a debate this morning in Parliament where there were plenty of MPs from the Conservative Party who were taking the Minister to task themselves. So I think that what people can do is certainly contact their MP, no matter what party they're from, and make it really clear to them that they do not support fracking. And I think just now it feels like the door is actually a little bit open on that, so they can really have some confidence that if they get that message across, they can make a difference. And certainly I think that the kind of direct action that the wonderful people up at Preston New Road have done is also making a difference. No MP wants that on their doorstep. It concentrates people's minds. And when you look at the latest research that shows that we're fracking to really go ahead at scale, it would require thousands upon thousands of fracking rigs all over the country. People don't want that, MPs don't want that, so take action, speak to your MP and get out on the front line as well.
Here in Marsh Lane, Derbyshire, in this field, fracking is set to begin, despite evidence showing how dangerous fracking is for people and the environment. The government is ignoring the concerns of local communities and allowing a private company to start fracking. And it's being allowed to happen just a few hundred metres away from a primary school where children learn and play. Head teachers of local schools have spoken out, concerned about parents moving their children to different schools. They are fed up, but the government refuses to listen. Instead, the Tories are fast-tracking planning so that exploratory drilling will be as easy as building a garden wall. Worst of all, fracking simply isn't necessary to meet our energy needs. It actually poses a huge threat to the fight against climate change. It's yet another example of the Tories' cosy relationship with the oil and gas industry. Fracking has been stopped in Scotland, Wales and Ireland. We must ban fracking right across the UK. A Labour government will listen to the concerns of people around the country and ban fracking immediately. Let's prioritise renewable energy and help create a greener Britain in a greener world.
The real reason to ban fracking is that it locks us into an energy infrastructure that is based on fossil fuels long after our country needs to have moved to clean energy. So today I'm announcing that a future Labour government will ban fracking. And we will consult with our colleagues in industry and the trade unions about the best way to transition our energy industry to create those vital jobs and apprenticeships which we are going to need for the UK's low-carbon future.
The reason that Barry made the announcement he did was very serious and very deep concerns about the pollution, cost and environmental damage of fracking, the damage it does to watercourses and the damage it does to aquifers.
Yes, sir, with the white jacket at the back.
Roger, you didn't mention fracking in your discourse on energy. Would you like to let me know what the party's policy is on that at the moment?
Fracking.
Yeah. This is one of those tough ones because the Green movement has got an awful lot of black propaganda, green propaganda, black propaganda out there. Because the Green movement actually hates business, hates industry, hates fossil fuels, and absolutely wants to stop us using them. Now, I wanted to know what the truth was of the shale gas issue, so I've been twice to America and visited two different shale gas fields, one in Pennsylvania and one in Texas. And I've talked to people who live locally, and I've asked what they think. And what I did not find was, I did not find people saying, oh dear, it's a problem, we've got earthquakes, we've got contaminated water, the value of our house has gone down. No, in fact, I found exactly the reverse. I went to one little town called Mansfield. That's Mansfield, Pennsylvania, not Mansfield, Nottingham. And what people were talking about in Mansfield, Pennsylvania, was the dramatic change in their town over a 5-year period. At the beginning of that period, it had been a rundown town where, you know, if anybody was trying to make a career, the first thing they'd do is leave Mansfield and go somewhere else. And over the 5-year period, they'd found, as a result of the shale gas industry, they'd found new businesses, new hotels, new restaurants, people in the piping business, in the drilling business. It had completely transformed the prospects. And incidentally, house prices going up, because, of course, new industry brings new people in. And I'm actually rather amazed because we've gone through, if those of us who are old enough to remember, and I suspect many of us in the room are, if you remember the death of the coal industry, and I don't want to get into the reasons for the death of the British coal industry, but the fact is a lot of people were very, very upset when the coal industry went down, and there are still communities in the East Midlands and across the country where they remember and resent what happened. Now, if you look at shale gas, it is safer and cleaner than coal mining. Yes, you get the odd earth tremor, but not as big as you got with coal mining, because coal mining leads to earth tremors. In coal mining, you've got hundreds of men, thousands of men spending several decades underground and getting rather nasty respiratory diseases. With shale gas, you don't get that. And if you worry about global warming, and there are those of us here who are less concerned about the global warming issue, but if you are worried about CO2 emissions, you get half the CO2 emissions from burning gas you get from burning coal. Now, we are facing a situation where more and more of our energy is imported from places like Russia and the Middle East, which, as we know, are extremely unstable, and in the last couple of years have been even more unstable. So there is a real risk to our security of supply. There is a huge advantage to our security of supply, to our balance of payments, and to the price of energy, to the competitiveness of our industry, if we can source energy within this country. Now, I understand the concerns that people have got, and we certainly don't want to go putting shale gas operations close to people's homes or where they're going to upset people, although I have to tell you, I've got a wind farm within a mile of my house, these enormous turbines, and the wellheads for shale gas that I saw in the States, I've got a photograph on my website actually of me standing next to one, and the wellhead device at the top of the well is about the same size as me. It's about the same height, and it's a sort of aluminium thing with some, well actually it's not aluminium, but a silver coloured thing with a few pipes on. It is much less visually intrusive. So the position that we take is, yes, we've got to be sensitive to local concerns and where these things are sited, but it's an enormous resource for this country. It's like North Sea oil all over again, and really, given the situation that we're in and the issues of energy security and energy prices, it would be irresponsible to rule it out.
Here from Nicola Sturgeon.
Well,
given the concerns that have been raised, why don't you match Labour's ban?
Well, there is no fracking allowed in Scotland right now.
It's not
because
banned,
we put,
though, is it?
No, well, let me explain the position. There's no fracking allowed in Scotland right now because we put in place a moratorium. And my view is that unless it can be proved beyond any doubt that fracking doesn't harm our environment, doesn't harm our health, doesn't harm our communities, then to answer Mark's question, no, fracking shouldn't be allowed at all ever in Scotland. Well, why we've got the moratorium in place is because...
advertising to decommission for fracking.
Is that true? Are you advertising for decommissioning jobs in the
on your
fracking industry that so far doesn't exist?
Well, one of the things we're looking at in the moratorium is what would be the impacts in terms of decommissioning, just as on the impacts of health and environment. But why have we got a moratorium in place?
Up the mess, Nicola.
Why?
Okay,
Well, perhaps what we're trying to do is show how expensive and difficult it might be to do that. But one of the reasons we've got the moratorium is because we have a situation where the UK government have given licences to companies to frack in Scotland.
Yeah,
so
and you're going to have the power over licensing.
Exactly.
Devolved to Scotland.
Well, we insisted on no more licences being granted until we get that power. But unless we've got the solid evidence before we were to move to a ban, we'd end up in court.
Are you frightened that INEOS or some other big corporation takes you to court?
Well, I don't want to end up in court. I want to get the evidence in place so that we can take our decisions on that basis. But there is no fracking. There is no fracking allowed in Scotland right now. And if there is any suggestion at all that it harms an environment, there will never be fracking allowed in Scotland as long as I've got anything to do with it.